Hey review family, keep it high, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one I'm going to be covering the new Paysage record entitled Geister. Now, over the course of the last decade, rarely do you see a really underground band break through in such a way that they maintain a level of publicity and coverage in the mainstream despite having such a brittle sound to them. And what Wintherr has done with Paysage over the course of the resurgence period of his career has been really delightful, surprising, impressive, and just alluring to say the least. Up until recently, Paysage was a name that a lot of people knew in the metal underground, but it was not until the studio-length album Im Wald where the popularity just began to pop the hell off, getting coverage from Anthony Fantano as well as some other reviewers. It rightfully caught the attention of a lot of different people coming from a lot of different ranges on the metal spectrum, including myself. It ended up making my end-year list, and I thought that while it did have a lot of flaws behind it, it was a likable record that understood what it was doing. Now, at the end of last year, Im released, which was a 2-track EP. I didn't end up covering it, didn't end up talking about it, because I felt like it didn't really satiate the craving of needing that really long-winded, harrowing record, that long winter that Im Wald really entailed, because I really think Wintherr is one of those individuals that can service from having longer records. So naturally, with a brand new studio-length album from Paysage, I was so fucking excited stepping into this, and a lot of other people were, because it was a cause for celebration. Im Wald was an amazing record, over 2 hours worth of material, and this one is cut a lot more. It's just a bit over 1 hour. A lot of the tracks are shorter, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people are going to take note of right away. But that's not the only difference between Im Wald and Geister. The comparisons can run, and it is definitely a Paysage record, but just generally a lot of the way that the instrumentals come off here read to me a little bit different. Straight away from the production, I don't think Paysage is selling out, or Wintherr is selling out because he broke into the mainstream more with Im Wald, but generally I felt that a lot of this was a little bit more audible, especially with the field recordings, and just generally a lot of the wretches and a lot of the riffs come through the mix in a lot more of a bold and biting way than Im Wald did. And I think this can sometimes work in its favor and sometimes take away a little bit of the chilling nature and atmosphere and ambiance that Im Wald was able to entail. Another thing is, with the shorter track lengths, these tracks don't hit the same stride of feeling like odysseys like Im Wald did. You could really sink and become consumed by those tracks, and while this track listing is over an hour's worth of material, so it definitely towers over a lot of other contemporary black metal records in terms of runtime, there definitely was a component for me personally that was missing with the track listing being a lot shorter. Furthermore, there are a lot more slower sections. Im Wald definitely did descend tracks a lot and would pad out interludes with field recordings or just slower moments and more ice-killing moments, but I felt like here they were a little bit more forgettable, and it sometimes felt like Wintherr was relying very heavily on some of these slower sections to pad out the time of a track, and considering they're shorter, that really did catch me off guard, and I found myself feeling like this record was a lot more standard and on the nose than practically everything else that was on Im Wald. Certainly there are moments on this track listing though that really do hit some horrific bits. Unda and Wutig, I believe I'm mispronouncing those, as well as the opener, are all really fantastic displays of icy, lo-fi black metal with a great amount of atmosphere and static behind it, very distorted, has a very thin production to the entire thing. It's harmful. It sounds really good. Harmful in a good way, I should say. Whereas tracks like Vluit and Warza are great examples of all of the things that Paysage does well, but just missing something, missing a level of memorability, falling prey to a lot more tropes that in recent times I have not heard much, and is sort of as reminiscent of a lot of the complaints that I heard coming out of a lot of haters' mouths for Im Wald, saying it was forgettable, saying it was not memorable, and I sort of feel the same way about a lot of Geister here. The highs are very high. There's a lot of really cool moments on some of the aforementioned tracks where a riff will just come off in such a way that it will feel like you are lonesome, that you are isolated, that you are by yourself up in the woods in a cabin in winter, snowbound. But I would be lying if I said that it doesn't occasionally get bogged down by how basic a lot of the other tracks can come off. The penultimate track on this record does end it off really well, and I think it sort of brings it back full circle to some clever, really strong songwriting from Wintherr. But the ending, this field recording, I think that unfortunately it just didn't pan out. I understand why Wintherr is so enamored with field recordings, and for this type of black metal record, I can understand where he's coming from completely. They do boast a lot of these tracks and adds to one of the reasons that Paysage d'Hiver really stands out amongst the crowd. And while field recordings are not anything new for black metal, this being the ender from the track listing was very underwhelming and just sort of left me feeling very dissatisfied once this track listing was over, especially considering the complaints that I had about this to begin with. Unfortunately, I felt very disappointed by this record, but it definitely is still a unique record that is worth trying out if you want to hear some very lo-fi atmospheric black metal from one of the best and most popular acts right now for very good reason. And I just hope that Wintherr can continue to push the limits of what he is capable of doing with this style. It is the fact that he has shown he can foster these extremely long-winded albums, but still make them very engaging, very intriguing, very intoxicating, and captivating from start to finish. And unfortunately, I did not feel the same way about Geister as I did about Im Wald, pretty much to any degree. Still though, I'm going to be giving this album a 6 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Paysage d'Hiver record, Geister? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about this record. I would love to discuss it with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Wintharr, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.